Hello again, this is UML Operator. Hello, in this session, I'm going to be answering some questions I've been getting on auto-generating diagrams from use cases. So I've done a few videos on this, and we've pretty much just focused on activity diagrams. But in today's session, we're going to go through these other diagrams, getting questions on how to generate auto-generate, I should say, sequence diagrams, state machine diagrams, and a couple of these other diagrams. Not going to get in huge detail, but some of you are having problems generating these diagrams, and let me show you what to do. All right, we have a blank project. There is nothing in it whatsoever. We're going to go to the root folder here. We're going to add a package in here, and we're going to call it Scenario Generated Diagram Overview. We're going to add a diagram, and we are going to use behavioral use case. And now we have the toolbox for use cases and a blank diagram. We're going to bring in a use case in here. We're going to call it, I don't know, access sounds like a good start. We're going to bring in an actor, we'll call it user, and we're going to bring in a class element. Go up here, toolbox for classes, and we're going to drag in a class element. And we're going to function key 2 to rename this, call it web shop, right? So we have a use case, we have an application or system, and we have at least one human actor. So this is a fast way to start brainstorming around a use case when you're working with other stakeholders, client stakeholders, etc. Typically what I would do at some point is come in and add, because we're building use cases, an actor catalog, and I'm going to go node diagram. I'm going to drag my user into my actor catalog, and I would create another one this time, node diagram, and we're just going to call it classes. We could call it systems, applications, but we're just doing a simple demonstration here. I'm going to drag that into that namespace. So I have namespaces turned on. I can see this user is in the actor catalog, and I can see that this class element is in the classes catalog or folder, and I have a use case outside of it. So I've covered use cases in quite a few videos prior to this one, so we're going to step through this so we can get to the various generated diagram types. So you have a use case up here. We're going to double click on it, open it up, and we automatically get to the structure editor where we can start building on scenarios. I like to click on this tab. I like to drag it and just put it right of my model, because I might be building other use cases as they're coming in. I want to keep my primary actors over on the left. And if we're adding more use cases, be able to bring those in here like that, right? So when I select this is a blank structured editor. There's nothing in here. We're going to name this scenario, give it a basic name. I'm going to call it web shop game access, right? So it's a online digital gaming company, something like that to get us started. And now we're going to start building out the steps around our user from our actor and our system that's in scope, our web shop. Since we're talking about access, let's go ahead and put our first action in here. And that is user selects, because we're on the online shop here, selects login. We're just going to call it that. It could call it login, from login page, and then web shop, right? So our system. Then I'm just going to hit enter. So it's a human event in the step. That's okay. But you'll notice that we want to focus on the user and web shop. And we're going to be using the web shop. So we're going to put web shop in here. Got to make sure you spell it correctly. And what we're going to do is we're going to go down into context references. And we're going to right click down here, add a context reference. And I can come into here and we added an actor. So I want an actor in context. I'm going to add another one. We're going to add the system in context. There we go. And I've got those. And you can see as I'm refreshing, I got user that was added. Let's just go ahead and refresh this entire thing. And now I've picked up web shop references within this very first step as we're going forward. And this will make more sense when we start doing things like auto-generating sequence diagrams and other models. Let's go ahead on this very first step here. Let's put results, and the results here are going to be a login page is going to be one of the results. That's necessary, and the state is, and we use all caps for state references, is just start. So we've done our first step in here. I'm going to go ahead and populate the other steps to shorten this video as much as possible. All right, so I populated another 8 steps that are in here. Let's go through these. So web shop prompts the user for credentials. That's a machine. User enters email address. It's a human user. So you can double click. You can change these as you're going through. Web shop, that's machine. Web shop, this should be machine. Web shop, that's correct. User, that's correct. Web shop's a machine. So we've got all of these set right. I added some uses. This is optional. So I'm using user. So it's picking up on that context down here. And you can add other context. You can add requirements as uses a requirement, uses a rule, but I'm not going to cover all of that in this particular session. Results, this is going to be used when we get into other types of activity diagrams with parameters, pinned actions, and so on. So let's just put some things in here to help with that demonstration. So confirmation is going to be a result once password's entered. Let's do a confirmation result here on email. So as soon as they lose focus on the email, we might be doing a background check, or we might even stop there and send some sort of email verification before we get to the password phase. That's all part of requirements. We'll talk about that later. Now, state. So we put in one that was start. We're going to put another one again, all caps, prompt for, and our delineation is going to be underscore, the delimited underscore, creds, good enough, right? And then what other state do I want to add in just for the heck of it? Down here is an important state, I guess, and that is creds, credentials, valid, right? Just something in there to support this demonstration. Okay, there we go. We just have a basic path in here. We don't have any exceptions or alternates. So let's go ahead and add some exceptions or alternate paths to support our activity model generation. So on this first one here, we are going to throw an alternate path. So we're going to come up here on 2, add alternate path, and we're going to call this alternate path, I don't know, access type. I'm just going to go access 1, because there might be various types of access alternatives you might have. You might have biometrics, other things like that. Facial recognition, which is bio, those kind of things. Just for the heck of it, let's put that in there. When we come down here to validation, especially based off of this access method. So we go here, we're going to say that we're going to bypass UID and password. We're going to go right to 6 where everything is validated. So in our flow, it's going to join us with step 6 and skip over based off of that. That's just one of the things we're going to put in there. Another one is that during password, username and password, down here, we might just completely throw them out. We might sense fraudulent access, something that is an anomaly, that's a security alert. So let's throw another alternate path here. So add alternate here, and we're just going to call it web shop, I don't know, path. Keep it simple, right? and that's going to lead to an end. So the join is going to be end, abort, cancel. And so we're good on that one, right? And then if there's no data found upon, allowing them to access, like this is a game site here, so there's no games for them to be able to access or provide, we might just throw them right to the end. So I'm going to go down here during option experience. There's no options for them to choose, and we're going to throw an exception. And there could be various reasons for exception handling or this, but we're just going to put data not found, games not found, keep it simple, something like this. We're going to throw an exception, and that's going to go to the end. Now, if I double click on each one of these, I can fill out other steps. So I go to web shop path, that's leading to end, data not found, leading to end. I can populate those at any time. But we're going to go back to the basic path, which is web shop game access scenario, and we're going to continue from here. All right, so we haven't generated any diagrams yet or gone further. So the very first thing that we want to do, and you could have done this earlier, is Control Alt and B, and we're going to do a baseline. We have not versioned or baselined this, and we're going to call it 0.01. And then as far as notes go, I'm just going to say initial draft. So in case I want to fall back on it, because we're going to be training and testing and playing around, and we want to fall back to where we were in case we mess things up. Now we can. All right, let's go back to our structure editor just by clicking on this of the scenarios. It's just a real fast way of getting back here. And those that have played around with this should know what I'm talking about. Right, so the very first thing we want to do is we want to create a diagram. Now I've done videos on activity diagrams. That's boring. We're not going to start there. We're going to start with sequence diagrams. I'm going to go ahead and select this. It's that fast auto-generated a sequence diagram based on our context references in here. So user and web shop, it connected to our context to generate this sequence diagram very quickly, right? So pretty easy stuff, right? So that's a sequence diagram. Let's go ahead and close this one. Go back over here. Let's create a robustness diagram. So I'm going to select on this one, and we get all of these control. This is anti. I'll talk more about these in just a moment. But here's where you're going to go to layout, and you can go to diagram layout, and I'm going to go circle just to kind of throw things around, make it a little bit easier to get started and moving these things around. So model view controller design patterns. So is one way to look at this. So if you look over the tooling for this, because it's using an analysis diagram type, you have a boundary, which we don't have any boundaries in here. I'm going to drag one in just for the heck of it. It's got a line to the left of it. This is presentation layer or view in the model view control design pattern. Then control is a circle with an arrow on it. This is your controller, your logic. And then entity, this is a data entity. You've got a circle with a line at the bottom. So essentially what we're saying here is that it's picked out everything that is functional controls. It's brought in some other step data that we've put in here, such as user does something in here. And this is a robustness diagram. And I'll talk more about this maybe on my website, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this video. We're going to do more of these as we progress. I'll go down into deeper details, right? So I'm going to go ahead and save this and then close it and go back over here. Let's create another one. Let's do a state. Now, if you remember, in state, we added, move this over here, we added some states. If you don't have any states in here, then you're going to get a blank diagram. I don't think you're going to get anything. So we're going to do a state diagram in here, and you can see it auto-generated a state machine and have all the state machine tooling right here. So it picked up our start, it picked up our prompt for credentials valid and ends. I mean, that's pretty much what we had in here: start, prompt for credentials, creds, and then down. And then I have videos on state machines, auto-generating state machines. Once you're in this tooling right here, you can start running simulations, execute simulation, interpreted or manual. Again, I cover all of this in those videos, but you can auto-generate state machines to start generating more requirements development, more project delivery, a lot of things, very powerful that you can do there. So far in our use case, if we refresh, we've created a robustness diagram, a sequence diagram, and a state machine diagram, right? Because we have, let me move this over here a little bit. Because we have results in here, and if you go to, now we're going to generate another type of activity. Again, I've done activity diagrams. There's activity with parameters. So let's mouse over activity. You can see that steps become activities. Keep it refreshed here, thank you. Where the input and results become tagged values on the activities. And so you mouse over each one of these, steps become activities, results become parameters. Down here, mouse over, steps, input results become tag values on the actions, because it's creating an activity diagram using actions. This is creating an activity diagram with behaviors. And then this down here is taking your input and results, and they become action pins as actions. So we're going to start with the first one. I'll get to rule flow in a moment, but we're going to start with the first one right here. Activity with action pin. So when I select it, it looks pretty much like any other activity diagram that we would generate, right? So, and there's no, I didn't create any of these exceptions or alternate paths, so you're not seeing anything. It's just going straight through. But when you're looking at this and you were to come on, I'm going to select the first one. If you go into tag values, it's picking up triggers, it's picking up memo for state, and I can open this up and I can put, you can see start is the tag for that, and it's going to be creating in its context reference actions in the control flows off the start nodes, so you can see all of that in here. So it's setting you up to be able to do, let's go into properties, actions, be able to do activity diagrams using the tooling that's available for actions. And then here's our tags again, and then based off the elements and the element properties, right? So if I go back over here and we go here, you can see what we just did was the input and activities becomes action pins on the actions, right? Mouse over it again. You're going to play around with this yourself as you're going forward, but I just want to generate these as we're going forward, right? So the next one we're going to do is activity with action, and becomes tag value on the action. So auto generated, it's that fast. I go on it, auto tag values. You can see now you have state, results. So state, we go to results. Now you've got results in here. You have state just like in the other ones, and you have use. Brought this in here, web shop. So you brought in more of the inputs and results as, and if I go back over, let me close this. Input results become tag values on the actions, right? So on the actions, these are actions, open it up. These are action elements, right? And the one that we did before that was action pin. Let me open it back up, open it up. It's an action element. It's just configuring it slightly differently. And again, I'll cover that more in other videos, right? So let's create the next one. So I select it, I'm automatically here. Let's go activities with activity parameters become activity parameters as the attributes, right, on the activities, right? So let me click that. These are behavioral. So when I'm going over, I have different properties. I've got action, I have behavior, and you see all of this in the state machine and activity diagram videos I've done. I demo how to set this up and do this. You set up your arguments, and then you also have tag values for state and triggers off the user. So now you're all set up to do activity diagrams, simulations using this type of auto-generated diagram, right? So close that. And then the one that I've done quite a bit for you is, of course, just a general activity diagram. Inputs become tag values on the activities. Go here. It really doesn't look much different. So you have behavioral elements. Right here, you go into actions. Because it's behavior, you have in your properties the ability to manage behavior for your simulations, put in your arguments, and now you have a lot more tags. You got tag values for user, tag values for state, result on the parent from the login web shop, as well as the action that we're focused on. All right. So hope this makes sense for you. You can see there's a trigger here. So when you're getting into your behavior, I cover all of that in that other videos. This thing is going to get extremely long if I continue to do all of that. So the next one is going to be on rule flow. Now, this is a much more complicated subject. So basically, I don't have any alternates in here, but it's, if I double click and open one, these are rule task elements. And with those come, go ahead and close this, come separate action, capabilities and features, tag value configuration, as well as element properties. So we'll get into rule tasks, especially when we get into business process flows, business process management and modeling. We'll get more into this subject, but you can auto-generate rule flows from your scenario. So that's also extremely powerful. So I've covered all of the auto-generated diagrams. I cover your test cases also in other videos. I'm not going to cover that here because this video is going to get way too long and I'm trying to keep it as short as possible. All right, with all of that said and done, let's come back up here, run another baseline. So we're going to create a new baseline and it's going to be 0, 2, 0, 2. And then what we're just going to call, just say here is outro, or I don't know, finishing demo, something like that. Hopefully I typed that right, close enough. All right, so finishing demo, and I want to restore back to the initial draft and show you a couple of things. So we've got that done. We're going to restore to baseline. Yes, please go ahead and do it. So you can see that when we started out, we just had a fairly empty use case. And I want to say that if you didn't have your context references set and you went to run a, let me go ahead and close this. Let me go ahead and open this. Matter of fact, let me just do this. Let me wipe out context reference. I'm going to delete reference. See, now they're all gone. And then what we're going to do, let's try to auto-generate a sequence diagram. It might pick up, yeah, it did. See, 0, nothing. There's no context for it to build off of. So that's a problem. So what we're going to do now to fix everything is we're going to go back up here and Control Alt and B. We're going to restore back to initial draft and do it again. Right, so restore to baseline, save by the bell, come here, launch diagram, select this. So we're back now. If we go to run Sequence diagram, because we have context, picks it up. And when you mouse over sequence, I believe it tells you steps become transactions between the context references used. So it tells you right there, you have to have context references in order to show the connectivity between those when you're generating. All right, so that's tip number one. State machines, already talked about it. If you don't have a state, you're not going to get any state diagrams. Let's hit Control-Alt-B, and let's fall back on the initial draft again. So restore back, yes, go ahead and wipe out everything. I'm good with that. Go ahead and launch the diagram. Right, so we come in here. If you don't have state, and we're going to go ahead and delete these. Can I delete that? Double click. There we go, delete. I've never done this before. Delete. Double click this. I don't know why I would do this. Delete. Now let's try to run a state diagram, see what we get. Empty, start to end. It's done. So you have to have state in there, otherwise you're not going to get a state diagram in your model. So let's fall back again, Control-Alt-B, restore back to initial, restore to baseline. Yes, I'm not worried about that. Launch our diagram again. And now we're back to our initial before we started doing any diagrams. Now look at the use case. Nothing under it. It's pretty clean. Typically what I do when I'm doing auto-generating of models, I might do them in separate projects from separate global unique IDs. In other words, copy this as a new element or object. But in this case, we didn't. We just did everything in one. So what we're going to do is hit Control-Alt-B, and we're going to restore back to when we were done finishing. So yes, we're going to bring it back. There we go. All this is coming back. And we're local, so it's pretty fast. Launch this. Go here. But all those auto-generated elements, look at that. It can get pretty messy, confusing. Everywhere there's a diagram, it will tell you. So here's your state machine. You can open it up. It becomes a completely portable element. You can drag and drop it, use it in other models and conversations. Double click on it, and you can set it up as to launch the model as it's going through, run simulations during a demo, all from an auto-generated model. So sequence models, again, drag and drop it in as a navigation cell. I certainly don't want to bring it in as a diagram frame. You could do that, I guess, if you wanted to create a picture, but it's kind of useless. Like that, you double click on it, it takes you right to the model. I might use a navigation cell or something like that. But it created a frame, Alt-G, find that frame. I can do documentation and reporting around it. Right, hit that and close. Right, come back up here. When we did the robustness, this was a class element, right? So in the robust model, it changed it to an entity. Now, I don't like that. That's kind of a bug for me. So, I basically have to, every time it does that, I've got to go find the model and I've got to change this element back to, and I can go into properties here where it's an entity, uncheck entity. Maybe there's a preference that we'll turn that off so it doesn't automatically do that. Or I could create a generalized reference of the element, but that's just an FYI when you're creating robustness diagrams. So I go here and do this again, robustness, and it's going to overwrite. So it creates these model view controller panels, and it changed web shop to an entity model. So come back here, look what it did. It changed it back. So just know that, be aware of that when you're playing around with robustness. I'm not sure how many of you are going to be doing that. And if I had exceptions in here, they'd be represented by red dots, alternate paths and exceptions, but there are none in here, so they're not highlighted. All right, so we covered that. What else did you learn? What else did you learn? Just have fun. play around with these different ones. Now you know, we're getting a lot of questions. Hey, it's not working. I'm not seeing my sequence diagrams. I'm not seeing, well, read. You know, it tells you that you, when you're mousing over an activity diagram, it kind of gives you some hints, transactions between context reference. Now, one of the things is people didn't see, they see this, entry points. They're not sure what context references are. And you can read up on that. Hit help right here to bring up Sparx web help, and it'll get you to all of that as you're going forward. All right, I hope this session helped you. Getting a ton of questions over the last few months, especially since I started doing use case and auto-generating diagrams using structured editor. And I keep telling people, oh, I'll get to that video soon. So while we're working on the wireframing video, which is going to be coming up soon, I thought I'd publish this video and get this action item off the queue. So thanks very much for all the support. Great questions come in from the community. So until the next time we talk, happy modeling.